Is it polyunsaturated? Polyunsaturated was talking to a gentleman yesterday who was considering launching a new business on the internet. He asked a question that stopped me dead in my tracks. He asked me if I thought internet marketing was saturated. What an interesting question. It reminded me of an article I had written earlier in the year. It was actually written to almost answer exactly this question. Here are some statistics I quoted in that article. Here are a few statistics. According to Internet World Stats website, world population 2010, 6,845,609,960 or almost 7 billion internet users 2000. 360,985,492 or about 361 million internet users 2010, 1,966,514,816 or about 2 billion. That means that about 28% of the world's population use the internet. Further, the growth over the past 10 years is over 400%. And for you mathematicians out there, they say it is growing exponentially, and that means a lot and fast. Those are huge numbers, but let's look at numbers that are a bit smaller. Let's look at a small American city of about 65,000. I am referring to Lawrence, Kansas back in 1979 when I lived there. Just to be clear, almost 30,000 of the population were college students at the University of Kansas. I was having a chat with a friend, and in the course of our chat, he mentioned he was starting a business. As it turns out, it was a network marketing business. Actually, it was the network marketing business. The one synonymous with soap. He was asking me to take a look at his business opportunity. My knee-jerk reaction was, "No thanks, your business is saturated." His answer still resonates with me 30+ years later. He smiled and asked me if I owned a refrigerator. I said of course I own a refrigerator. Does it work well? He asked. I informed him it was indeed keeping the milk perfectly chilled and made mountains of ice-cold ice. When do you plan to buy another refrigerator? He asked. I don't. This one works fine, I answered. Then the chat got interesting. He asked me how many places in our small college town sold refrigerators. After a moment, I had counted about 15 to 20 places within a 15-minute drive that sold major appliances. His next two sentences rocked my world and became a guiding principle in my marketing life. He asked how many people in town own or use refrigerators. Well, of course everyone, I said. Even the college students had those little dorm-size refrigerators. Then he dropped the bomb. He said, "Why isn't the refrigerator market saturated?" Well, frankly, I was stunned. Why isn't the refrigerator market saturated? Clearly there were 15 to 20 businesses all out there selling exactly the same item, well, maybe different colors, sizes, and levels of quality, capacity, and a host of other variables. But they were indeed flourishing and selling the same thing. Scientifically, you could do the math and figure in use/time studies and average lifespan compared to consumer purchase habits. Well, you get the idea, but the fact was, even with an item that everyone has, that most would not typically be replacing. Remember, major appliance, what the government calls durable hard goods. In other words, stuff that lasts. Even these items have enough demand to support a bunch of stores. Time was if you wanted a fast food hamburger, you went to McDonald's. They had signs showing they had sold millions. There was a saturated market if ever there was one. Excuse my obvious pun. Certainly no room for others. Good thing Burger King did not know that, but now of course there's no room for anybody else. Wendy's did not get the memo either, and then we got Dairy Queen and Arby's, and a dozen others, not to mention the fact that you can buy a hamburger in every restaurant in America. No saturation here. My final lesson in this lifelong learning process came when I worked for an aerial photography company. My job was to go into areas where they were providing an aerial photography flight and see who would like to have aerial photos of their businesses. They had been at this for over 50 years, and no one I have ever encountered before or since has had better business statistics, They had me select a little stretch of road with small businesses up and down both sides of the street, and my job was to walk in 40 of those businesses, 20 in the morning and 20 in the afternoon, and simply ask them if they wanted to have photos taken of their business. Here were the statistics: if I visited 40 businesses, I would actually only encounter 8 decision makers during my day's work. It turns out in the final analysis 1.4 or so would purchase. The information that shocked me most was that we could return to that same little stretch of road that we had already covered the very next week and have exactly the same results. Over and over and over. We had only seen 8 decision makers. Some had been with clients, others out of the office, some were homesick, and for another multitude of reasons we just did not get to see them. Every time we went back, it was a different world. Some businesses closed and some new businesses open. Some businesses were bought and sold. Even a 2-block long stretch of businesses can't be saturated. If you walked in giving away gold ingots, it would never get saturated. So next time someone says, "Oh, that's saturated," just smile knowingly and take them out for a hamburger. David Rodwell, DollarDominator.com